Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the Worm Whisperer here. Today I'm going to teach you how to supercharge your worm castings. These are a little more advanced tips that I'm going to go over today. As we work our way through them, at the end I'm going to have a couple little secret tips I'm going to give you, so stay tuned. Okay, let's get started. Okay, to start off, we're going to add just our normal stuff that we normally add to our worm bin. I have another worm bin video that I have. It's called Setting Up a New Worm Bin. You can check that out. So I'm not going to go over too much about that just because we've already gone through that. So I'm going to basically start adding what we need. So I'm going to add a lot of this cardboard. So this is just ground up cardboard. And you'll notice that this is dry. I like to wet it after the fact. I don't wet it before. I do wet the cocoa. Okay, so now we have a basic bin. It just has some cardboard in it. Now we're going to move on. We're going to add some cocoa to this. So as you can see, I have wetted down the cocoa. So I'll sprinkle this in amongst the cardboard. So this cocoa is really good because it comes, as it breaks down, releases a lot of phosphorus and a lot of potassium, which are both good for your plants. And the worms like it. Alright, so now we have a basic bedding for our worms. We could just put our worms in here right now and they would be fine in this bin. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit now. Try to get that cocoa mixed in there really nice amongst the shredded cardboard. Alright, so now we've got that all mixed up. That's perfect right here. So we're going to start adding our amendments. So the first thing I like to add is some alfalfa. It's right here. It's basically ground up clover. So I like to sprinkle a little bit of this in. Now you don't want too much of this. You just want to sprinkle this in pretty lightly, and the reason being that this is extremely high in nitrogen. So as the bacteria breaks this down, this alfalfa, what's going to happen is it's going to heat up the bin. So you want to be not a whole lot of this, just enough to sprinkle it in there. So I like to mix that in a little bit on the top. One good thing about the alfalfa is it has a growth hormone in it called tricantanol, which is really good for healthy plants. So the next thing we're going to add here is some insect frass. So this is really good because it has a lot of bacteria in it, a lot of things that are going to charge up your worm bin. It's going to help the bacteria and the fungi get working on the food in here. And essentially what insect frass is it's the poop of flies. So it's fly waste. Okay, so next we're going to add in some more high nitrogen amendments. The next thing we're going to add is this fishbone meal. So that's the fishbone meal there, 612-0. This is also very high in nitrogen. You don't want to add too much as this is going to heat the bin up. As the bacteria break down this high nitrogen amendment, it's going to heat up the bin. So you want to go fairly lightly on this. Okay, so the fishbone meal is all mixed in there. Next, we're going to add one of the more important amendments. In my opinion, it's probably one of the best amendments you can use, and it's probably one of the most supercharging amendment that you can use. And that is oyster shell flour. So what this does is it has a lot of calcium, which is great for tomatoes or any other plants you're growing that have a lot of fruit. Another great thing about this is that the worms will ingest this and it will help them break down all the food and other stuff that we're adding to the bin. And they also like calcium. So I like to sprinkle this stuff in here pretty liberally. Get it on the food. It'll help them break down the food. Now we want to mix this in really good. Make sure that worms are able to access it easily. Okay, so another important part, glacial rock dust. So this is rocks that are broken down. They're crushed into a powder, and the worms will ingest these as well, and this will also add a lot of micronutrients, and it will also help the worms break down their food. Alright, so last but not least, we're going to add some mineralized phosphate. What this is it's bat guano, which is bat poop that they mine. Very high in phosphorus, which is great for flowering plants. Okay, so I just sprinkled some of that on top. Mix it in. So the cool thing about all these amendments is that the worms are able to break every one of these amendments down into your worm castings, and essentially everything that's in all these amendments, all the nutrients, All the micronutrients are getting broken down and will be available to the plants. Okay, so I promised you a couple secret tips, and I'm going to show you now. I like to add a little bit of bone meal to my worm castings. The worms really can't break this down in the amount of time. I like to add this bone meal because it adds a little bit of extra nitrogen in your finished worm castings and your finished product. We sprinkle some of that in there. So that's trick number one, to add a little bit more nitrogen. The reason why you need so much nitrogen is that is essentially what the bacteria are feeding on in this bin. The fungi and the bacteria, they'll come in here and they'll feed on the nitrogen. So you want to have a lot of nitrogen in here because not only do the bacteria need to feed on it to help break it down, but also plants can use the extra nitrogen. So my last little tip, I like to add a little bit of these chicken pellets, chicken poop that have been put into pellets. I like just to put a little bit of this in here. The worms can break this down. And this is really going to charge up your worm castings. These are extremely high in nitrogen, really good for your plants. I don't like to put too much in just because it's the same kind of deal with like a lot of the other high nitrogen stuff where it's going to heat up your bin. You want to be very conscious of heating up your bin. So that's usually good enough for the chicken pellets. All right, so here we have some finished worm castings. See, they're nice and brown and dark. These were made exactly the same way as I made these supercharged ones. You can see a little worm in there. Very dark, smells very earthy. But this is what this will end up as. I like to add a little bit of this worm casting just to get the bin started. So those worm castings will add the kind of things, the kind of bacteria. It will start the process of breaking things down before the worms move up into this bin. So the last thing would be, I would wet this bin down. You don't want to put too much water in it. You don't want it to be sopping wet. You just want it to be like, so you can squish it like that and a little bit of water will come out. You can see the food in here. I'm going to bury this a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll take this bin, and I've got a 4-tiered worm bin. I'll set this one on top now, and I've moved the other bins down. So now my bottom bin will be ready to harvest, and this one will be a new one just getting started, and it will move down through as the months go by, and eventually it'll be worm castings. Alright, so I hope this was educational for you. If it was, I hope you'll leave a like and subscribe. I hope to have more videos for you soon, and thank you for joining me.